Yoweri Museveni of the National Resistance Movement has 14,232 votes. The total vote is 23,049 votes. That is what they have released so far, and it was just at 11 sharp. According to the Chair Electoral Commission, we are going to have another update tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and the expectation is that by that time a number of other polling stations will have sent their results and how it has been. Now, I want to talk to someone as we close. Maybe he has been in the election observation for a very long time. His name is Mr. Crispy Kakeru. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. Just to be very accurate, I have observed 150 elections in over 50 countries globally.
Okay. I have wanted to ask this. What is that standard that is looked at and taken as the standard that qualifies an election to be free and fair? There may be a number, but what is that main one that an observer may share?
People should be able to participate freely, unimpeded in an electoral process. That's the only one. That's the gold standard. Yeah, I mean, anything besides that is really secondary. The primary standard is people, as long as you're a registered voter, you should be able to participate in the electoral process unimpeded.
You have observed elections in Africa.
Correct.
Out of 100, how do we score? On the African continent.
Well, I wouldn't want to give a score because different African countries have different contexts, and the contexts determine the type of elections we have. But I will tell you one thing, that in Uganda, we are talking about the need for electoral reforms, but our laws are one of the best in as far as electoral processes are concerned. Not just on the African continent, but in the world.
Why?
Because our laws provide for that unimpeded participation in the electoral process. You might have a question whether we translate what is in the books of law into implementation. That's a whole different question. But in as far as the legal framework for elections in Uganda is concerned, it's one of the best. And I will tell you why. Now, in many of the African countries, you cannot challenge results from an election. It's cast in stone. Once the electoral authorities announce the results, that's it. In Uganda, you can challenge an election result. In fact, I shouldn't even be going far. In the neighborhood, in Tanzania, once a candidate is announced winner for a presidential position, that seals it. No challenging it in court, no challenging it anywhere. That's the legal position. It's in the Constitution. But here, people can.
And we have seen it happen.
We've seen it happen.
But besides seeing it happen and the legal framework giving us that leverage, do we really practice what our law gives us as a country?
Yes, we do, with challenges. Implementation of the law has never been seamless anywhere in the world. Even in the best democracies that we love to cite, the UK, the US, you've seen how the US elections have been conducted. You've seen how UK elections are run. You've seen elections in the largest democracy in the world, India, how they run. So, translating the law into actual practice has never been seamless. And I think we would be lying to ourselves if we wanted to say that there is a society that implements the law to the very point that that law has to be implemented. No. What we aim for, I think the law sets the standard, and we need to adhere to that standard as much as we can. Now, what we see in Uganda is an attempt. We try. Challenges exist, and that is why we're still talking about the need for improvements in the electoral laws. But beyond improvements in the electoral laws, we also need to talk about enforcement. Enforcement, which is what we're going back to, translating what is in the books of law into action.
Not only elections, why do we set standards that we fail to see to reality? How can we be the best people to write laws that we cannot achieve in reality to even 80%? How does that happen?
The law is a standard. You always aspire to. You always try to. If you hit the standard, perfect. But the law is supposed to, it's like in flight language, what they call a Doppler. You know, planes follow the Doppler. You know, the Doppler is put somewhere and the planes are supposed to follow that. So that is what the intent of the law is. You follow the law. Now, why, you've asked, why do we have laws that we fail to score? I don't think it is the intention to fail to score to the best of the law. I think it is the realities of life that we have to constantly address. Now, we need to constantly address those challenges that impede us from meeting the standard of the law. That is why we are talking about electoral reforms constantly. And that is why, ahead of each and every election, it is important that a country thinks about the recommendations that were made from previous elections and seeks to cure those problems. And you can cure those problems by law, by administration, by program. By law, legal reforms. By administration, through making amendments in electoral administration, institutional arrangements, so that you deliver to your objective. By program, by putting in place programs that will support your objective. Civic education, voter education, and a host of all other, peace programming, etc., etc.
I want to end with this one in form of an example. I was interviewing an opposition leader during the campaign time, and they were complaining, this is the candidate, but he's still the president at the same time. I asked him, you have MPs in parliament who know about this law and sit where the laws have to be amended. They go silent about it 5 years and only complain about it during election time. Yesterday I was asking the Electoral Commission chairperson, where he was saying, yes, we know it is the law that allows you to keep around the electoral area, polling station, but we think, and I told him, the law is the law. Why don't you seek an amendment of that law in order to fit? Why do people forget, or why do we forget to take